How did it feel like when you discovered that your narcissistic mother or father was being rude and invalidating to you because the objective of their relationship with you was never to love you at all? What was it like finding out that when it comes to narcissistic individuals, they don't actually see people as individuals, but extensions of themselves? And you can't love someone that you cannot see. Hi, my name is Tari Lima, and for the past 10 years, I've been helping adult children of narcissistic parents gain freedom, boundaries, and psychological autonomy, so you can live a life where you call the shots and that makes sense to you regardless of family backlash. If this sounds like something that you're dealing with and that could maybe help you, then smash that subscribe button. Now, one of the most destabilizing realizations we can have about our narcissistic parents is that it's not that they failed to love us, it's just that they were playing a game where love was never the end goal to begin with. Now, I am also the adult child of a narcissistic parent, and I want you to know if you're dealing with this, there is a way out of this maze. You can start by downloading your 10 steps to break free from narcissistic family systems. You can find that link in the description below. Now, let me get into what adult children of narcissists say that they feel when they finally discover that the love that they've always been searching for is probably something that their parents cannot give them. One common reaction is feeling invisible. Now, notice I didn't say feeling sad or feeling angry. It's actually feeling invisible, like you don't even exist at all. A lot of people tell me that they experience themselves as literally nothing. I mean, imagine finally dawning on you that your parents literally cannot see you as an individual. So feeling invisible, feeling like nothing, makes sense clinically. When children grow up in an environment where their needs are secondary, their emotions are irrelevant, their identity as an individual is invisible, then it's normal for such children to start adapting their personality to their caretaker's needs. Some people change who they are in terms of serving their family members, so they kind of take on that fawn response and they become people pleasers. However, other people rebel and they'll do the exact opposite that the family is demanding of them. In both situations, the family system is still the central axis of their decision making and their identity. So we don't want to do what the family wants us to do, and we don't just want to be rebels, right? Who specifically do the opposite that the family tells us to do. What we actually want to do is learn to self-regulate amidst the chaos of guilt and fear so that we may access our own inner authority, our inner compass, and slowly, 1% every day, forgiving yourself for the rest, start acting from that inner compass. This is what builds a sense of self. In both situations, people are reacting to how they perceive love was or wasn't available in their family environment. And many of these people report feeling absolutely exhausted after 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of literally trying to be what the family wants them to be without ever achieving success. Now imagine your whole life just trying to be enough to all of a sudden recognize, acknowledge years later that that was never the point and that it's literally impossible to be enough for someone who deals with narcissistic adaptations and therefore feels a lot of inner emptiness. For some people, discovering that narcissists and narcissistic parents do not use their children to have so-called normal relationships with, but rather they put their children in an objectified role. And the role their children have is to regulate their own self-esteem. For some of us adult children of narcissists, when we discover this, it's actually a type of relief. Because if I understand that my mother or my father has an internal limitation that actually prevents them from seeing me as someone who isn't just an object to regulate their self-esteem, then I can also just give up, right? Because there's nothing I can do about it. In a way, this is quite freeing. But for other people, it's absolutely devastating to understand that there's literally nothing you can do. It doesn't matter how much guilt you feel over your family situation. It doesn't matter even if you pity your mother or your father. None of that changes the way their personality works. Many of these people grew up with a chronic sense of inadequacy. Imagine trying to always please someone and it literally being impossible. They may exhibit excessive perfectionism. They may constantly try to get approval that never stabilizes because love itself is a moving target. The family has a reward system with invisible rules that make no sense. And this experience of just trying and trying and trying over and over and over a span of decades and not getting anywhere is also very confusing. Because if you're dealing with someone who is capable of learning and growth, who doesn't take things that go against their mindset or their view of reality as a personal threat, then our effort makes sense because they change, right? The other person listens, they pay attention, they're interested in our effort. So we do reap some rewards. But if you're dealing with narcissistic people, your effort doesn't make a difference. If you just keep trying as hard as you possibly can and the other person can't see it, can't acknowledge it, can't take it, can't process it, can't talk about it, they can't reflect on it, and they just blame you, well, it's not only confusing, but it's difficult to do anything about, because you love the person, right? Or you have a relationship with them. Do you just give up when you're trying to make someone see your side of the story and it seems like what you're doing is fair and they just literally can't? That's why the word crazy or crazy making often shows up when we go into support groups for those who are dealing with narcissists or narcissistic parents. No matter how much effort you put in to be seen, validated, to be fair, what you're gonna get back is just that didn't happen. You're exaggerating, you're too sensitive, you're remembering it wrong, you were always a hard person, you're hard to love. And by this time, even if you intuitively feel that your viewpoint is correct, it also doesn't make any difference, because you've been trained to not follow your inner compass and to mistrust your own voice. So the feeling of there being something wrong gets translated to, this must be proof that I am inherently wrong. We don't actually interpret it as, why do I feel tense around my parents? Could it be that there's something wrong with the relationship? Or there could be something wrong with their personality functioning? And this is why most adult children of narcissists will absolutely need a community or someone else that has gone through the same experience. Because oftentimes you will be in a culture like my own culture here in Brazil, where people are not capable of saying anything that goes against the family, because it's like a sacred thing in the country. So if you're already feeling sad, lonely, depressed, confused, anxious, and you try to talk to someone who doesn't understand narcissistic family systems and who is very attached to their family, then they're just gonna assume that you're bad-mouthing your parents because you're ungrateful. Now imagine growing up in this environment where no one in your family or outside your family can validate that there's something wrong happening. In these moments, it's really important for somebody outside of us to acknowledge what reality is. For example, I remember that one of my stepfathers, he was too scared of my mom to say things to her in her face when she was around, but oftentimes she would do or say something that wasn't appropriate, and as soon as she left, my stepfather would look at me and say, Tari, your mom is like that. Your perception of things makes perfect sense. And I think back on that. And back then I thought, God, you're such a coward. Why don't you tell her to her face? Now I understand he was codependent. But I also understand that those little moments of input where he validated my perception really installed a little nugget of sanity in my brain. And a lot of children of narcissists don't have one sane adult to do this favor for them. And this little nugget of sanity needs to be there if you want to develop into an adult that can discern what is manipulation and what is your inner compass trying to talk to you. When we're children, we're still building a sense of self. If we don't have that outside reference, or our reality is always shifting, then the basic experience you're going to be left with is you cannot trust yourself. You can't trust your perception of things. You think you're inherently wrong. You think it's inherently impossible to change certain situations. So while some adult children of narcissists report feeling non-existent when they understand that their parents cannot see or love them the way they, and others report feeling completely crazy because they can't make sense of it. There's another cohort of people who experience this lack of love as role reversal. So they were born, but that narcissistic mother or father actually put the child in the parent position. So this can look like managing their parents' emotions, becoming hyper attuned to any sort of mood shift so you can intervene and help them regulate. Essentially, children who should be using all of this energy to develop functional personalities divert the energy from normal development, from normal play, and they direct it towards hypervigilance, where they learn from the onset that they must look at themselves from the outside in. So when you deal with such children as a therapist or as a coach, you will often find that when you ask them a question about what they want, they'll respond something like, well, I think my mother this or that, or my dad this or that. And they don't even know how to see the situation from their own inside stance. You know what I'm saying? At some point, you just don't even ask yourself what you feel about things. You might not even know emotionally that that's a thing you can do. Now, the result is you're going to feel obligated, guilty, scared, and exhausted. And if this is how you feel, then it's completely understandable that you might want some boundaries and some distance with regard to your family system. But even if you choose to do this, there's the avalanche of guilt that comes along with it. The loneliness, the sadness, this newfound information that you've been fighting for a type of relationship you will never have with your mom or dad. Also, just understanding it in your head isn't going to undo all of the wiring in your personality that has been oriented towards either striving to get love or reacting to the fact that you feel you don't get love. People's personalities, their entire personalities, coming from narcissistic family systems, are oftentimes based on desperately trying to get love or reacting to feeling they don't have enough love. For you to change this wiring, then you're gonna need years of shadow work, therapy, and self-therapy, all of those things that are going to teach you to self-regulate, connect to your inner compass, and interpret reality from your actual viewpoint. Now, another part of the crazy-making experience when we discover our parents can't love us the way we would like them to is that we might be in a culture or society that can't validate this. So even if you try to open up about this to somebody who doesn't understand about abusive family systems, they'll invalidate you and gaslight you as well. Some people feel so guilty when they hear other people talking about their parents. It's like they feel guilty for even being in the same room with someone who would have the courage to badmouth their family. So because of this emotional dysregulation of theirs, they can't just calmly pause and listen to your story. And this is why it's absolutely adamant for you to get specialized support with people who have preferably been through that and actually mustered some level of, healing, or people who have deeply studied this issue. Now, if you spent your whole life trying to regulate someone else's self-esteem, then it's very likely that you really don't know about your values, your goals, your likes and dislikes. You might not know much about yourself. It's going to take a while for you to start building this connection with your inner compass. And the more you connect to your inner compass, the more this becomes your internal axis, your sense of authority, your sense of self, and the place that gives you a sense of safety as well. But healing in this case comes from giving up the fantasy of receiving that impossible love. It comes from going through the grieving process of fully accepting your parents' limitations. This means emotionally processing the fact that you will never be seen, understood, or treated like you would like. Now, this is important because I've had a lot of clients who were able to do the really difficult thing, like go no contact, but then they didn't get specialized therapy or specialized support. And they were just stuck, frozen in grief for years. And this is because reducing contact, setting up the boundaries is just one part of the process. The actual grieving process will often take years. And most preferably, it should be done with outside support. And working through grief means identifying all of the different things that you needed as a child, as a teenager, as a youth, as an adult, and finding practical ways of giving yourself those things in your life now. So it's not so much about what your parents did or didn't do. It's more about what you needed them to do that they didn't do. It's about what we wish they would have done for us to feel nurtured in reality. Oftentimes, we're not even attached to our actual narcissistic parent because deep down inside, we know they can't give us what we want. We're actually attached to this idealized fantasy version of our parents that we wish would someday give us what we want. So as we move through this grieving process, we can go through denial and, eventually we might get to the depression or the anger phase. And this is the phase where the veils come off and you can fully see that something weird happened there in your upbringing. So this is number one. We gotta go through our grieving process. And this means fully acknowledging our parents' limitations. Number two, we have to understand and be okay with the fact that people can have different realities. We have to give up on this idea that our parents need to see and validate our way of seeing things. Once we give up this need for other people to see life the way we see life, all of a sudden, we don't care so much about how they see things. So if you're still desperate, trying to get closure from your parents, trying to have them see your side of things, trying to explain yourself, getting exhausted, screaming, feeling sad, just when you see yourself getting triggered in that way, pause, take a deep breath, and remind yourself, you know what? This is my reality. They can have their reality if they want. They don't need to make an effort to see me. But you know what? I also don't need to make an effort to pretend that my reality is different. So instead of thinking, oh my God, I guess I just have to accept this horrible, toxic, abusive, negligent behavior from my narcissistic parent because I've been trying to get them to see things from my point of view, but they can't. Instead of thinking about things that way, you can think, you know what? A lot of people would think that I have to have contact or that I can't say no to my parents because this is their reality. But my reality from my standpoint right now is that as an adult, I have full autonomy over my life and my boundaries. And that, I'm just asking for basic respect. Isn't it amazing when we can finally let go of having to have other people see our realities or of having to have the same reality as other people? The third step is to allow yourself to explore and redefine what love means for you. So throughout your days, as you interact with other people, your parents, but other people as well, ask yourself, is this experience I'm having right now something that feels heavy, tense, dense, or something that feels light and expansive? You might discover, for example, that maybe your mom or your dad likes to badmouth the neighbor, and that you always participated in the family badmouthing because that was the only way you could connect, but that your body feels really tense when you start doing that. And you might come to the conclusion that you don't want any relationships based on bad-mouthing other people. That's not your idea of love or a healthy relationship at all. And you can do this by getting a little sheet of paper, drawing a line down the middle, and on the one column, writing down what other people told you love was: obedience, submission, or not questioning people, for example. And then you can write your own version of what you think love is. So communication, space for people to be their true selves, reciprocity. See what I'm getting at? Unless you create a new model of what healthy relationships and love are, then it's very likely that you're just going to keep repeating the same sort of dynamics you had with your family in other relationships. Also, the more this new definition of love allows you to nurture the relationships where those things happen, the less you're going to need your family's approval or closure from your family or for your family to see reality the way you do. As you find practical ways of identifying unmet needs from your childhood that are still present in your life now, and as you find practical ways of fulfilling those needs now, your inner child is going to feel so full and satisfied that he or she will not need your actual physical biological parents so much. Eventually, we stop asking ourselves, why couldn't my mom love me? Why couldn't my dad love me? And then we start asking ourselves, why did I even believe that love was so painful to begin with? I want you to know that you can start creating newer, lighter experiences. It just takes effort. If you feel you can't do this by yourself and you want specialized support from someone who's been there, done that, and helped thousands of people just like you over the past 10 years to break free, then get in touch for one-on-one sessions or join our Break the Chains program. You can find the link in the description to this video. Now, if you thought this video was useful, then you might like this other video as well.